Hi everyone and welcome to my show, Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make homemade pizza that will definitely taste better than any pizzeria's pizza that you've ever had. It's so good. So we're gonna do the dough on this episode right here. So we've already made the pizza sauce, and you can get that on the sidebar. Just look up pizza sauce. And now we're going to do the dough. So let me tell you what we need. We need 5 cups of bread flour. It's really important that you use bread flour for this recipe. We need 5 cups of bread flour with 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of all-purpose flour, 3 cups of lukewarm water, and a little bit of olive oil, and a teaspoon of active dry yeast. So I'm going to activate the yeast by putting it in my bowl with the water. So make sure the water is not very hot or very cold. It should be around 115 degrees if you really want to be very precise and whip out a kitchen thermometer. I just touch it with my finger, and as long as it's not burning hot or even hot and it's not cold and it's just lukewarm, that's good enough. So I'm going to leave this on the side for about 10 minutes until the yeast softens up and start doing its thing. So one note about working with salt and working with yeast. You never add salt directly to the yeast. Just make sure it's very well incorporated into your flour, so that way it doesn't touch the yeast directly and it's just in the flour. And as a matter of fact, it's softened up and it's ready. So I'm going to add my 1 cup of all-purpose flour to my yeast and water mixture before I add my bread flour to it. I'll even add my olive oil. It's just a few tablespoons of it. If you notice, there's absolutely no sugar in this recipe. You don't need it. It's really thin right now, but this is going to get really thick and it's going to make a delicious dough. This dough I've made focaccia bread with, and it was just so good for dipping pesto in and olive oil. I'll add the rest of my flour and salt mixture in, and then I'm going to knead it by hand. If you have a tabletop mixer, that's fine. Go ahead and put this all in your mixer all together and let it knead it for about 8 minutes. But if you're doing it by hand, it's really simple. All you have to do is just roll it all around the counter, knead it for about 10 to 12 minutes so the gluten forms, and that's it. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need a mixer, but if you have one, go ahead and use it. That's fine. So I'm going to mix it all up with my hands first in this bowl. And then I'm going to transfer it onto my counter, and for 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, I'm just going to mix it all around until it's a nice, smooth ball, big ball of dough. And it starts off really sticky and ends up really smooth. So you want to keep the all-purpose flour nearby, so if it's too sticky to work with, add a little bit at a time until it's nice and smooth. So let me take a little bit on here and let me show you how to do it by hand. It's so simple. So you want to take off your rings. Let me take mine off and put it here on the side. And all you do is just turn it all around your counter, fold it. You just play with it. You can punch it. If anybody really made you angry, go ahead, take out the dough and start making some pizza. And it'll relieve a lot of the stress. So it's still a little bit sticky, so I'm going to take a little more flour. You don't want to put too much flour. Last thing you want is a very tough, dense, hard dough. You want the dough to be nice and light. And the more you knead it, the softer and smoother it'll become. So I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. Actually, I'm going to do it for 12 minutes. As you can see, it's gotten so smooth, it's not sticky at all. And it's turned into a really nice ball of dough. So this is how you would continue to knead it. I've already kneaded this for 10, 12 minutes. And that's a minimum. You can knead this up until 13, 14, or even 15 minutes, and that really develops the gluten. See how nice and smooth it is? That's what it looks like when you're done. You have a really nice ball. So you want to take your bowl, and this is the bowl that's going to sit and rise in for about an hour. So you want it to be big enough so that way it gives it room. It's going to almost double up in size. We're going to put some olive oil on this to prevent from forming a skin. And I'm going to cover this in saran wrap, leave it on the side, and let it rise for 45 minutes to an hour until it's pretty much doubled up in bulk. And then I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so the dough has been sitting proofing for about an hour, and as you can see, it has doubled in volume. So I'm just going to punch it down, and I'm going to take it out over here on my cutting board. So I'm just going to cut it into 3 equal pieces and form a round ball with them. You can pinch the bottom too if you want, or not. So just make 3 as equal as possible, because this makes 3 pies. But we're not going to use this right away. The difference with this recipe and others is we're going to ferment it in the fridge, which just means that we're going to put it in 3 airtight containers and leave it in the fridge at least overnight or up until 3 days. So it needs to stay in the fridge for 1 day or up until 3 days. And that's going to create delicious flavor in the bread. It's going to create all those really nice air pockets that the yeast are going to work on. And it's going to make the dough really, really light. So we're going to put it in 3 containers, and make sure that the containers that you're using, that they have enough space, because it might rise a little more. It probably will rise a little more in your fridge, and you don't want it to spill out of the container. So make sure it stays in the fridge at least 1 day up until 3 days. Whatever you're not going to use, if you're not going to make 3 pies, or if you're not going to make some bread with it, after it's done fermenting in the fridge, put it in Ziploc airtight freezer bags, and it can sit in the freezer until you're ready to use it next time. See you all later. Bye.